So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you've all managed to take some summer fun, some R&R, and we have today with us our own summer fun on this dark, dreary September day in Dorset. We have Amey with us and their fantastic lineup of military magic to inspire and entice you. So sit back, enjoy. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Caroline, and welcome to the BuildForce Virtual Career Chat. My name is Angela Forbes. The BuildForce is a not-for-profit aimed squarely at encouraging our fellow peers in our sector of construction, engineering and the wider built environment to support you, our ex-military. So the Armed Forces offer what amounts to Britain's biggest and best apprenticeship programme. You then receive the most sophisticated training and leadership skills available, so have no doubt of your talent and your worth. And BuildForce is here, a collaboration of employers working together to make this a career option for you. And these virtual chats heighten your awareness of this great sector. And this particular chat is of personal importance to our team as it's our 100th virtual chat. So thank you for joining us on this milestone, and we can't think of anyone else we'd like to share it with than our most favourite employer. So we welcome a very warm welcome to industry giants Amey. They're popular amongst our service leavers, they're gold ERS holders, and with an environment, social and governance strategy which is best in class. These are real examples which demonstrate the culture and the values of this organisation, not to mention its incredible people. So today we are going to hear from some of those. We've got 4 veterans on the call today. So Ryan Evans, Account Director, Jack Smith, Operations Manager, Martin Peters, Business Improvement Project Manager, and Michelle Wiggin, Senior Social Value Manager. And the all-important recruitment team, these are the ones that are going to support and guide you through. We've got the incredible Jolene Hall, so our Defence Recruitment Business Partner, Ifan Hembra, Resource Operations Coordinator, and Sam Heron, Resource Operations Manager. We'll take questions at the end. Feel free to write comments as we go, but we're going to hand over to Ryan. We're going to kick off straight away. Ryan, you'll bring your presentation up and we'll switch our cameras off.
Thank you, Angela. Afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to virtually meet everyone. Fingers crossed this presentation will be coming up shortly. Please let me know, Angela, if it doesn't. But as Angela had described and introduced, I am Ryan Evans. I'm a service leaver. I left the Armed Forces last year and joined Amey. Today, I'd like to kind of go through a little bit about my background and Amey, why Amey, and how my journey got me to starting with the organisation. But as kind of a brief overview before introducing myself, I'd like to kind of go through some of the elements of Amey for those that are not that aware of what we do as an organisation, and then I'll explain a little bit about my background. Angela, can I just check that that's going across okay?
Yep, perfect.
Perfect, thank you. So for those who don't know, Amey is a civil infrastructure giant. As Angela had pointed out, we employ somewhere circa 15,000 staff. We deliver infrastructure solutions for UK mainland and projects around the world. Mainly UK mainland is a kind of the big bulk of our work, but foreign work is an area we are starting to expand more and more into with new ownership. I've got a brief couple-minute video that goes through some of Amey's areas. I'm just going to play that for everyone now. So that was just kind of a brief introduction, perhaps, to Amey for those that didn't kind of have any idea what Amey did. But a little bit about myself. So I joined Amey as a new program called the Elite Veterans Program. So I'm still the only participant this participated in this, but it is something I'm now keen to try and expand wider and look to bring more people in on. But I am a business development director, and I sit in our group function, which kind of oversees commercial activities within all of the business units. Amey has three main business units, which are complex facilities, transport infrastructure, and consulting, which does include design and data analytics. My background then, so I served for just over 18 years, having left last year, like I've said. I was UK Special Forces in the Special Boat Service. I served down in Poole, previously Army, and after passing selection, then become part of the Navy as a Royal Marine. What I'd like to talk about, because I'm now part of Amey's Armed Forces Affinity Group, along with a couple of fellow members, which will introduce themselves shortly after myself today, is talking about the journey of how I got to Amey and why then choosing Amey, and some of the kind of advice that I would pass on to people that are thinking about this industry or are struggling to consider what their careers will look like after the armed forces. I appreciate that there are people that may be coming from an engineering background, people that are on this call that are not from an engineering background at all. I had a bit of a mix because I was an engineer from the Army previously before going on to selection, and then clearly infantry, leaving the armed forces. So why Amey? As some on this call may be aware, I was offered a contract in a line of work a lot of people with my background tend to leave. And what that was, out to people who may have interest, was to go to Qatar and teach their version of our Sanders to Qatari cadets. As you can imagine, it's probably very well paid and there's no tax. And for me, that was my great turning point, because I realized that I wasn't motivated by money, and actually the reason I was leaving was I wanted another career, and that career for me largely looked like an industry in London. That was where I kind of based my ambitions, because I participated in the London 2012 Olympics, so I always had a passion for London. Spent a lot of time there since working with UKSF, so I decided that was where I was going to focus. I started to network, never networked in my life. Used LinkedIn heavily, and I'm more than happy my LinkedIn details to please connect with me and ask me how I did this. Leverage veterans, and I tried to find out about every single industry that I possibly could. That led me to understanding industry. It led me to meeting a lot of managing directors, executive directors, and I found myself spending more and more time in London, actually having face-to-face meetings and coffees back to back. I would be one end of London to the other end of London and back and forth. Now, you may have heard people kind of explaining the coffee trail to you, and if you come to this stage after, we do find meaningful employment of paying it on to the next veteran, etc. But what probably not explained from that is during that process, it wasn't a process of me trying to find a job. It was me trying to find out about myself, what roles motivated me, and then what industries motivated me. And also led me to the conclusion that no chance meeting and no chance conversation, however small, is irrelevant, because you never know where they lead. Every single job that I was offered towards leaving come from the back of conversations. I never applied for anything, and I was always approached afterwards and asked to submit a CV for a job that they had in mind for myself. Amey was actually a very chance meeting, by completely to kind of back up my point. I had met a lot of the senior managing directors, including Andy Milner, who is Amey's CEO, and never in my wildest dreams would it have led to any sort of offer of employment. And then completely kind of last minute, after accepting a couple of other roles, keeping irons in the fire, as people often say, Andy Milner's PA reached out to me and asked if I would attend a coffee with Andy, and then he offered me a role. And why I say this, because the journey that I originally started with, which was turning down an offer which would just been a highly paid role, and finding out about what I wanted to achieve in my second career after leaving the armed forces. Andy Miller never told me a title, never told me a salary, never told me anything. What he did tell me was where he thought he could use my skills, where Amey, being a huge promoter and employer of veterans, he described skill sets that he felt were lacking in the organisation that he thought that I could bring to the party, and asked if I would be interested. Now, because of that journey I took, I'd identified all things that I wanted to do. I wanted key stakeholder engagement. I wanted a command role of some capacity. I wanted customer interaction. I wanted problem solving. And I wanted a frontline role, but also with a deep kind of data heavy process to drive that. And out of all the roles I'd found so far, none of them quite matched everything. And the role that Andy described was that. So I accepted on that basis. I didn't get a contract till 4 weeks later. As I mentioned, I'm the first and only member so far of the program. So I had no idea what this was. And after the contract had landed and I'd already accepted, was I then aware what role Andy was bringing me in to do, and this program that he wanted to introduce, which was 12 months and moving through all of the 3 key areas of business at a senior exec level to understand the business and then take on a role as a director in one of those positions. As a lot of veterans will say, that there's an element of fear. When I went through that journey, week to week, I had no idea what was going to happen. I just had faith that hard work would get me somewhere. But what I did have on the way was veterans that I bumped into at various networking events that somehow believed that perhaps a job was going to come to them, and that isn't the case. I just wanted to make that clear. I worked hard at finding that role, and I networked very heavily, and my day-to-day calendar was completely full. It was a full-time job to generate that. But what it did lead me to is the day that I started in our London office in Furnivall Street. For anyone that has looked this up, I found myself walking out for lunch my first day as a civilian and going for a coffee. And it suddenly hit me that I was no longer networking, I was no longer going around London. And a kind of sense of, you kind of made that transition, because obviously it's a long, difficult journey, 12 months, 2 years for some. And I was happy. It set home that actually I'd made the transition and this was a great place for me. Since then, I've had nothing but a really good experience. I think the employees in Amey are exceptionally welcoming. I've had a great kind of setup for success, and I can honestly look back and not say that that transition has been a bad experience for me. Yes, it was stressful. Yes, it was hard. But that's because of that journey, that hard work that I put in that transition process is now led to a much smoother transition into civilian life. So why Amey then? Amey, for those that don't know, are largely a lot of our contracts do come out of kind of the government sector. We do a lot of work for government agencies, MOD being one of them. So Amey holds the maintenance contracts for Maori quarters, for those that live in Maori quarters on the call. Contracts with the Department of Transport, Network Rail, National Health Service, Heathrow Airport, as well as a lot of other airports, Ministry of Justice or Prison Services. And I put this one in because I guarantee there's someone on this call that is a Thailand wretch. For those that have been, just as a kind of demonstration perhaps of the reach, is the SkyTrain network in Bangkok was actually built and designed by Amey. We've done a number of projects around the world, Australia, Middle East, North America, and looking at further contracts, kind of like South America region, Caribbean, just as a kind of understanding perhaps how far reaching that the company is. Schools and kind of local authorities, so your councils, etc. And that is across all business units. So to break those down, transport infrastructure covers highways, and also rail. One of our kind of biggest and most notable projects recently that's just coming to a conclusion. We delivered the Core Valley Lines rail project in South Wales. So we completely modernised and kind of brought that rail system into the 21st century, because it was diabolical, for those that know previously. Clearly you can tell from the accent I am Welsh, so I remember that. And I think some of the other ones we do existing projects now with Network Rail up through the north, so doing a lot of the modernisation and network expansion for HS2 and HS1 that's now been dissolved into localised funding. And that's really largely what I wanted to cover with Amey. More than happy to kind of take any questions now or at the end about my transition, but I think if we move on to the next and keep it flowing, and I come back to that if everyone's happy with that.
Brilliant. Right, everyone. I'm Jack, operations manager within Amey. What I'll do is I'll give you a run through on my journey. I came through BuildForce, so I'm sort of a direct solution, if you like, of the BuildForce scheme. So my background then, I grew up in northwest London, bit of a deprived background, not much of an education. I joined the infantry. I went to the Army Foundation College, Harrogate. I then went on to my unit, which was the 2nd Battalion Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment. I got posted in South London, Cyprus, the Midlands, and then I finished with the 2nd Ranger Battalion, or the newly formed Special Operations Brigade in Aldershot. And 18 months ago, I was exactly where you are now, in a position where I was leaving the forces. So I can definitely relate to what you're all in now. Like I said, 18 months ago, I decided to take the plunge to leave. I came from the Army. I reached out, networking on LinkedIn, got in touch with BuildForce. Caroline and Angela were absolutely brilliant. They took my CV, they gave me some mentoring. They fired out to different companies. I got feedback, and then I landed a job here with Amey. And that was due to a veteran where I work currently wanting to recruit. So he reached out saying that he was looking for someone with leadership attributes, looking for work in this area, and picked up the phone, bit of networking, came down, spoke to him, and yeah, I landed my job here. So my job currently then as an operations manager, I'm sure some of you are probably wondering what an ops manager does. The easiest way to describe what an ops manager does in a business is a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. So for me, I work in complex facilities. I manage 43 schools across Northampton. So if you was to pick all these schools up, tip them on their heads, everything that would fall out of the school, disregard, everything that was left would be down to our responsibility. So the fabric of the building, the walls, what's inside the walls, the flooring, the drainage, the roof work, any additional projects that need doing, maintaining the cleanliness of the school, working with the stakeholders, working with the clients. That's all what I do. I work with a team in Northampton. I've got a projects department, life cycle department, a technical department, a customer support department. And basically what I do is I just ensure everything's working efficiently and everything's running smoothly. So I'll dip my hat in with every different department and try and help them out to get things going. I've put branding on there to talk about branding. I think branding's a really important piece that you need to remember when you're in this position now of leaving. I was guilty of it, and I'm sure there's people on this call right now that are pitching themselves as a project manager. I'd say that's good if you really do want to be a project manager, but you are also equally far more capable of doing different things as well. So don't just pitch your LinkedIn or your CV as a project manager and get tunnel visioned into looking for work in whatever industry it is as a project manager, because what you'll do is you'll get tunnel visioned into that and you'll disregard other opportunities. I would argue that coming from a military background, coming from being a senior NCO, I would say the equivalent of a sergeant in the environment I work in now is an operations manager, and it's quite a very easy transition to make. I'm pretty much doing exactly what I did as a sergeant in the Army, just in a different environment now, and I'm not wearing a uniform. So my advice to branding would be, don't get fixated on one thing, network, keep your eyes open, look at different options and work out what's going to work for you. In terms of translating military skills into the corporate world, then I'll put some pictures on the screen. So the top right-hand picture was me training the Nigerian army or some version of the Nigerian forces over in Nigeria. And I'm sure the veterans amongst us on the call can relate to a round robin. So what we were doing in that environment was we were training them to what their needs were, and we were doing that in a round robin. We were broken down into small groups and people were just pottering around training. I took that setup, which is pretty much second nature to a veteran, into where I work now. So the picture below is my office and my sites all working together. So there was a bit of a disconnect between the front line and the management structure in the office. So what I did is I just duplicated what we would do in the military. I got all the department heads to give a 10-minute pitch, did a round robin with the frontline staff, and they all moved around and got to know each other and started to understand what everyone does. And it really bridged the gap between our frontline workers and our management structure. And as a result, performance went up with the working environment. So that's just to show you a very basic example of how easy your transferable skills are, which you're probably overlooking. Simple things like that you do on a day-to-day basis, those problem solving skills, they go for miles in the civilian sector. Equally on top of that, I'm sure there's people sitting on here in senior positions or even junior sort of command positions in the forces, where you'll have a soldier come into your office and they'll say, whatever, boss, can I sit down? Can we have a chat? I've got a pay issue or something like that. And you'll log it as a G1 and you'll say, I'm dealing with a G1. That in the civilian world is HR. So believe it or not, you're dealing with HR cases there and then. So I would urge you to annotate that onto your CV, that you're probably overlooking it, but you do deal with these things. I had a conversation with a veteran last week, and when I broke it down to him and I spoke to him, I said, do you ever deal with, do you know what I mean, admin of your guys, disciplinary, stuff like that? Yeah, I do. Okay, that's HR. So we can put that on your CV that you're competent at managing HR and you've got experience there. Equally, when you're running your LFTT packages, and before you run down your range, you give the safety brief and you go down and you do your walkthrough, and then your guys turn up and you put them in an area and you say, right, this is where you're going to stay. You sort out the food, you sort out the transport. Again, that's all sort of operational management, where you're making sure the operation is proficient in what it's doing and it's working. So all these little things that you might overlook are quite easy to translate into what the civilian sector is looking for, but you just don't know it yet, which leads me on to networking. The way you get to know these things, you get to understand these, is by networking. And a lot of people will think that networking is attending an event like the one that we're on now, or going to a workshop, or traveling to an event. Networking can be as simple and as easy as picking up the phone and ringing your mucker that left 12 months ago and asking him or her, how's your job going? What did you do to get the job? And it can be really as straightforward as that. Those conversations go a long way. Again, as an example, I had a conversation with a guy I knew from the forces who rang me last week. He gave me a call, started talking, asked for some advice. I've given him some advice. I've got his CV now. His CV's in our system. My LinkedIn is predominantly people looking to hire veterans. So anything I see come through, I'll send on to him. So just by reaching out and making that phone call and those small trivial pieces is a version of networking. He now has a better understanding of what he does and how to translate it onto his CV. And equally, he's got me looking in the background to support him in his roles. So yeah, grow your network and utilize it. I would say certainly things with LinkedIn. People will put a lot on LinkedIn about, I'm leaving the forces on this date, looking for a job in this industry. And that's all well and good. I encourage people to do that. But I would equally encourage people to use it a little bit more to the best of their ability. So write provocative posts that are going to get people talking. Because if you write a provocative post that makes me, for example, I'm connected with over 900 people. If I comment on your post, it will then go onto my feed and onto the people that are on my feed. Again, if someone else comments it. So I would urge people, use it to the best of your ability. Try and put provocative things on there that are going to get a response from people and get them talking. Moving on from networking then, I'd say interviews is an area that can be quite daunting when you're leaving. If you're like me, joined the army at 16, technically the job I'm in now is the only interview I've ever had, because I didn't really do an interview to get into the army. So they can be daunting, and you can look at the job description or the title and see all this jargon that you think, oh, I'm out of my depth. I'm not going to be capable of that. And it might be commercial and technical experience. What I'd say is the people that are going to be looking to hire you are looking to hire you for your leadership and your man management skills. So lean towards them. don't be put off by commercial and technical experience. I joined a job now where I'm managing 43 schools. Do you know, there's multiple buildings in schools. There's a lot on my plate, and I'm getting to grips with the commercial and technical side of it by the support that I get from the team in the office, by Googling problems, by getting out on site, speaking with the supply chain. So all of that stuff can be taught, but people are going to put you forward for an interview if you're leaving the forces predominantly based off your leadership attributes and your leadership skills and the fact that you're a veteran and you're a desirable person to work in their business. So they can teach all the other stuff. So don't get snowed under with the commercial and technical side of it. Lean on the fact that you're all good leaders, and that's the foot you want to be putting forward. Health and safety, I've put health and safety. If anyone wanted to move into an operational role within Amey, sort of mid to senior level in an operational environment, be it construction or whatever, I would urge you to try and secure a health and safety qualification. So health and safety is huge within Amey. It's one of our biggest things that we prioritize. If not, it is the biggest thing that we prioritize. So if you can turn up to an interview with years worth of good leadership experience and a decent health and safety qualification, i.e. a NEBOSH construction, a NEBOSH fire, or general, or SMSTS, site management safety training scheme, then you're already on the front foot, because we like safety, we like the environment to be safe, and we like leaders. So if you can come with that, you're already in a good position. Everything else can be taught after that. And then lastly, what I wanted to say was your first job won't be your last. So I can completely understand what you're going through now. 18 months ago, I was in the same position. You put yourself under a lot of pressure. You're dying to get that job. You're going to do everything to do it. You're going to have your sleepless nights worrying about it. How are you going to pay your mortgage? I really want to secure this job. You might have to take a job that guides you into the next position or is lateral to the one you want. And you might have to spend 12 months in that role before you move into it. But don't put yourself under that amount of pressure to get the exact thing that you want at the start. Just remember that your first job won't be your last. I think that's pretty much it from me. My QR code there is there for my LinkedIn, so please feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to connect with me, ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to support people. And then, yeah, I think we'll take questions at the end.
My name's Martin Peters. I work for the Amey M&R contract, which is like a maintenance and response contract within the Highways of England. So I started off as a Royal Marines Commando in 2006, and then I joined and then did various operations around the world, a couple of Afghanistans and various other ones. I took as much as I could out of my time in the Marines, and then I was discharged in 2015. To go through my sort of journey from leaving the Marines to now was quite a challenging one. I didn't realize the support and the networking that was about at the time, and I found it really difficult. So when I first left, I went and worked in Sports Direct selling trainers, which was quite hard for me, from going from a Royal Marine, running around in helicopters and jumping out and all that, to selling a pair of trainers in a shop. But I used sort of my transferable skills, and I did a lot of research on how to make sure what I'd done in the Marines was transferred into a way that would work in the sort of civilian world. Again, that proved really challenging, because I did the standard thing that most people do. I jumped into a project manager's course and said, yeah, I can be a project manager. I could do risk management and all this, because I was a Royal Marine and we did some kind of projects. Although we did, everyone I went to for a job would say, well, what skills have you got in what project management? What projects have you led in the civilian world? And it was a real challenge for me to sort of transfer everything into the understanding of a civilian company to take me on. I joined Amey on a whim. So they had a business improvement job advertised as a sort of business improvement project manager. And I thought, oh, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. When I applied, I got brought forward for an interview. And the fellow that was interviewing me, he had a lot of connections with the forces. He wasn't forces himself, but had a lot of connections. So I started gibbering on about how I did this and that, and tried to convert it into civilian chat. And he just stopped me in my tracks and he said, listen, I know what the military's like. I know what they do. It's very hard to transfer your skills over. Tell me what you did as a Marine and I'll transfer it in my head. So he did that for me and I went through everything that I did. I then got the job, which was brilliant, and I've come a long way from there since. But what I did as soon as I got the job was I looked at what the job was and what I'd done in the military, and I found the comparisons. So like Jack was saying, things around like HR. I'd worked with HR, but we would call it G1, and it was just things like that. And then I looked at my CV, the job application, and then I tailored my CV then to sort of future-proof it. And when I'd got into the role, I then changed my sort of view on the direction I wanted to go. I felt that project management, yeah, it's brilliant, but it's such a massive industry that what kind of project management, what am I good at? What have I done in the past? How can I shape myself for the future? So I started doing courses like risk management and lean. And then I found that the way that military minds work and the way a lot of yourselves would probably think is you do lean naturally because you don't want to walk the furthest yawn. You want to go the best way. You don't want to have to go through the longest way up a hill and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of naturally turn to lean anyway. And I found that was the sort of direction I wanted to go in. Using that sort of lean and project management, risk management, and things like that, I've then sort of branched off into different areas where the military has sort of tailored me for it. So I do a lot around recruitment with apprentices and bringing up young kids, not young kids, so I was wrong that, bringing up young adults into the industry and sort of tailoring them into their direction, helping them develop themselves, giving them confidence and things like that. And that all came from my sort of behaviors as a Royal Marine and how I would look after the next person down and always make sure that the section are together, make sure that the troop are always together. And I tailored that. So I do a lot with apprentices. The business improvements, just naturally, you always want to find the easiest way to do something, the cutting out waste and things like that. So using all that together, I've sort of tailored this career path I've got now, which again is open-ended. I can go in any direction. And I've now using that, I've now transferred to a sort of new side hustle role where I am digitalizing the contracts across the whole of transport and infrastructure, which is getting 23 contracts, speaking to the operatives at the very bottom of the pile, understanding what they want from a sort of digital transformation. And then I am taking that away to the senior managers to say, I need to build this. Then I'm going to go to a team of IT people and they're going to build it. But I wouldn't have got there without using and tailoring the skills that I've got from the Marines. I would have just stayed where I was. I could have failed. I probably wouldn't have gone where I wanted. But I had to tailor that to how I wanted it. And that's the hardest thing, is to find them transferable skills and put them into sort of what you want to do. Stepping back from that sort of big picture that you want this all singing, dancing job, you need to start from not the bottom, but mid bottom before you start looking to really push yourself. And you'll find that as a sort of ex-forces veteran, you'll fly faster than most because you work harder. The whole ethics, the way you work is just different to anyone else. And I find that in this business I'm in, a lot of the people that are the best to work with are ex-veterans because they've got that sort of attitude. So like sort of top tips I've probably got is that always volunteer. So I did this in the Marines and I got to go a lot of places. Sometimes, like if any of you know, you always get that one where you volunteer for something and it's never good. So you do get the good ones. But in these kind of industries, most stuff you volunteer for gives you exposure, gives you sight, and you get to understand the contracts or the job roles a lot more than you would be if you just sat there and did your one job day in, day out. So through that exposure, I've been to all sorts of award ceremonies down in London and some in Scotland, and I get to travel all over the country doing different things that are not my role. So I get to do like the quality stuff, I get to do the apprenticeship stuff, all by just volunteering to do that sort of extra thing to help the contract and to help better myself. One thing I found around sort of time management is quite a simple one, and some people probably already know it. But what I tell a lot of the apprentices that come through is, if you can do something in 15 minutes, should do it. So that comes down to things like applying for jobs, doing your CVs, doing a course, a 15-minute course, doing some of your course work and things like that. If you keep adding these little tasks to your list, you overwhelm yourself, and then that takes the sort of edge off what it is you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, and what your progression looks like. So if you can do something in 15 minutes, then just do it, and then that will set you up for your sort of future when you go into sort of different styles of work. Plus, you've never got them outstanding tasks that are on your head. And never underestimate yourself. So a lot of people, like Jack, what Jack was saying, you transferable skills are not always what you think they are. You might think, oh, I've only ever been a rifleman, I've only ever been a mechanic. But there's so much more that we do as veterans and people in the forces that we can transfer into different angles. It's just how you do it. So never underestimate yourself. Always push yourself as much as you can for new opportunities, new ways of working, and look for that different avenue. I never thought I'd be business improvement. I didn't think I would know anything about improving a business, but it just comes naturally. You're not focusing on the actual ins and outs of the contract, but you're focusing on how to make things better, and you just do it naturally. My LinkedIn's at the bottom there. I'm not very active on LinkedIn, but I go on it. I've got a lot of contacts on there. I do a lot of stuff with SAFA and another couple of studies and a couple of charities in my own free time. So if I do have people that come to me asking for help, support, or even direction, I'll reply. I'll set up a phone call with you or whatever in an evening or something. So if you do want to reach out and contact me, let me know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I've waffled on long enough now. So
I'm Michelle Wiggins. I am a senior social value manager within Amey. So my journey started with the Royal Navy. I was an aircraft engineer, absolutely loved it, and obviously had exposure to a lot of fantastic detachments and lots of training. And I was an engineer when I left, but my path kind of took a little bit of a different turn, because when I left, priorities changed, and I wanted to focus on a family. But what I did was I kind of supported my husband, who was still serving, and kind of moved around with him. And what that kind of triggered in me was the drive, really, and I noticed that actually it was quite difficult as a spouse to have access to employment, and I didn't like that kind of inequality side of things. And in kind of over the space of a few months, I decided, actually, if I'm going to do this, I've got to, be the change that I want to see, and I'm going to have to do it myself. So I decided to set up my own business following the Navy, and I had a soft FM business down south, and grew that kind of over 7 years. And it was a kind of social enterprise. I would bring other spouses who had the same challenges. They were, home with the kids, and they needed that flexibility. So this was a really great, perfect model, really, for spouses. And it got me learning a little bit more around social value. And that kind of is where I've stayed then. I've stayed in this realm for so many years now. But I decided to move back up to Newcastle, and had to sell the business, and wanted to go into industry in the social value realm. And I found a role in community engagement, and that was a fantastic role, really, because straight away I had a multitude of clients that I had to work out what it is they needed in the community, and then look at different initiatives and programs to better the lives of those communities. And so I was traveling all over the north doing that, and it was wonderful. And after that finished, so that was for a couple of years, and then I got asked to come into Army headquarters to look at the internal community. They had a platform called Defence Connect, and they wanted to kind of better the comms and engagement, and my role was to kind of community manage that area, but also kind of strategically lead on engagement and improve the way that kind of key messaging is delivered and programs and initiatives are pushed out. Absolutely loved that. Did that for a contract, so it was a couple of years, and I was then kind of approached by a colleague who was working, an old colleague who was then working at Amey, and they mentioned, you know, they've got the military housing contract. They really want a social value manager who understands the needs of the service families. Would I be interested? And it was just perfect timing because the other contract was coming to an end. So I jumped at the chance because I genuinely thought, you know, there's so much that could be done in the defence community. I absolutely will, you know, grab this. So I took the jump and joined Amey. And it's been fantastic. But for those really who don't understand what social value is, there is a standard term, and that's normally around kind of social value focuses on the delivery of outcomes. So that's either what the client will tell you or what the local kind of community will tell you what what they want as the outcome and what the local need is, and then you have to use the services from your company that you're in, the people that are in that business, or the support that you could potentially provide to improve the lived experience of that community. And it, you know, things can grow arms and legs. There is no limit really to what you could deliver. There are so many exciting projects and initiatives that you can get involved with. It's a brilliant role. But a little bit more background probably in social value is the concept emerged probably early 2000s, when kind of the UK decided that actually, you know, the realization that economic success alone is not enough to create a sustainable and inclusive society. So they decided to put more of a significant role for organizations to play in kind of focusing on the well-being of the communities and the environment in which they operate. So social value, you might have heard it called kind of ESG, environmental social governance. You might have also heard it being called community engagement or corporate social responsibility. So it's had many terms over the years, but we name it as social value in Amey, and it very much sits at the heart of our ESG strategy. So that's the page that's up now. But if you just go back there, Ryan, I just want to touch on one thing, first. I forgot to go through the skills. So on a couple of other talks that I've done, I've touched on some of the key skills that are really useful that service people have that they bring into the kind of social value realm. And, you know, the key ones, leadership and teamwork, that's a given, project management, the communication and stakeholder engagement, that's really key for delivering good social value, and it's something that a lot of people who are in the forces are, you know, kind of used to. Problem solving and adaptability, good decision making, that resilience and discipline, diversity and inclusion awareness, and logistics and operations. So I put that one on there because we very often, with a lot of the programs and initiatives we want to deliver, you have to work with so many different organizations, but also engage your own supply chain. So I thought that one was pretty key there, because I know a lot of people might have experience with logistics on the call as well. So just jumping over to the next one, please, Ryan. Thank you. So yeah, so I mentioned our kind of social pillar of the ESG before, but this is our ESG strategy, and there is a QR code there on the screen for anybody who would like to read more. But this is a kind of a groundbreaking strategy for us, and it really kind of puts out what are sustainable, how we're going to be more sustainable going forward and kind of carry on growing, and obviously the tightened governance around that. If you jump onto the next one, please, Ryan. So I just wanted to highlight some of the key things with regards to the defence community, because it's relevant for the audience on the call. But through our social value with our defence account, we've enabled 18.7 million in social value. So that's all the fantastic programmes, initiatives, veteran and spouse recruitment, apprenticeships, all of that has a value. And at the moment that is sitting at 18.7 that we've generated into the defence community. Over 32% of our team on the defence contracts are actually from the military, and 41% of the defence contract management teams are from the defence community. And we've had 15 kind of work experience programs. The reservists get 2 weeks paid leave, and just over 40% there of our employees use their social impact days. So even if you come into Amey and you're not in a social value role, you have 2 paid days per year where you can volunteer and get involved with any of the activity that's going on, or something that you're passionate about, a cause you might kind of already be connected to. So I thought it'd be quite nice to just highlight that for you. The next one, please, Ryan. Okay, so on a couple of the last calls, people wanted to understand a little bit more about the range of programs and initiatives that we do in social value. So it's really diverse. So, you know, you've got things like a pop-up kind of multi-skills construction hubs you'll run up and down the country. You've got your work experience and apprenticeship programs that you'll be running. You've got your well-being programs, and then things might have more of an environmental angle. So you might be doing kind of waste and recycling awareness, or focusing on your internal employees and looking at waste prevention programs for them, or it might be looking at the supply chain and kind of seeing where your spend is to make sure that we're working with local employers to invest in the local community, local businesses, so that we invest in the local community. Now, there's a lot of context behind all of these programs, so I thought it'd be really nice to link our latest annual report, and in there it's a full kind of quantitative and qualitative account of everything we've done in the last kind of year. So hopefully you'll find that quite an interesting read to learn more about social value anyways. And we're so happy our progress with the client is at 96%. So and we're only in we've just started year 3, so we're in a really good place. The function within Amey is an ever-growing function. We now are placing social value kind of leads on every contract, and if you were thinking, oh, this might be a role for me, you know, if you're very much kind of purpose driven, then you might find, you know, how do I get into this? Well, we have the kind of first step on the ladder is normally a social value advisor, and then you could jump into a social value manager role. Then there's the senior social value manager role and head of social value. So that's almost like the family tree there that you could have a look at. Next slide, please. I think we wanted to highlight, the Armed Forces Covenant. So we are a gold award, and we've just refreshed that at the end of last year. So we're really proud. We do so much work, and we are constantly looking to improve things as well. So we always want to be recognising the skills and experience of our veterans, spouses, cadets, reservists. We're always looking to support employment, work experience, and looking at programmes. And I've got quite an exciting program to share with you next. So we realized through our experience as veterans that there is a bit of a gap. So if you jump to the next slide, please, Ryan. Thank you. We realised if we work together as a veteran cohort with our L&D department, we could maybe create our own version of a decent transition programme using our lived experience, and the business have backed us 100%. And yeah, we're really excited. We have our first cohort kind of joining us at end of September, early October. But what this is, it's a three-phase program. The first phase is all about really early engagement. So we're talking as soon as you are thinking about transitioning, nowhere near your kind of last 3 months, but as soon as you're thinking about transitioning, we want to start engaging with you to do that kind of assessment and look at where your strengths are, any gaps you might have, and then we can work with you to shape your knowledge about industry and about the roles, and then build up your kind of development plan plan, and then bring you on once you hit that termination leave, bring you into the phase 2 and 3 point. And then by the end of your termination leave, you will have a peer support group. You'll be part of the Armed Forces network. You'll have a buddy and a mentor. You'll also would have had all of that kind of development plan secured, so you would know the role that you're going into is probably the right one now, and you'll have that guaranteed interview for the live role at the end of your termination leave. So we're really, really excited about this, and obviously we'll be learning lessons as the first cohort go through, and we'll make quick changes as and when needed, but this should be pretty unique in terms of our industry, so we're quite excited to get people on board. And that'll lead us really nicely onto our recruiting team.
Good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, thank you so much for joining us. So my name's Jolene Hall. So I've worked for Amey now for 9 years, so quite a while. Basically, so I just want to go back really, obviously, Ryan, it's all been mentioned before, but really we've got 3 main business units. So consulting, design, advisory, analytics, transport infrastructure, and going back to complex facilities, which is the business unit I cover. So what is complex facilities? So really we deliver the facilities management side, so asset management, services for education, defence, health and the prison estates as well. So obviously within my area, honestly, there's so many roles that we're currently recruiting for. So I don't know if you want to go to the next slide, Ryan, sorry. So basically what we offer, obviously every role there is, certain differences, but really we offer the career development, good pension, holiday, and it's minimum of 24 days, but it does go up to 25 as well, depending on bandings. Choices, we have a excellent, very flexible benefits scheme tailored to you. So you can buy up to 5 additional days a year, cycle to work, charity giving, gym memberships. The list is, honestly, it goes on. You can also save with Amey. So we offer online voucher portal, which gives you access to thousands of discounts from leading retailers to help you save on shopping, days out, nights in, holidays, healthcare, free GP services and dental vouchers as well. We also, obviously, Michelle's touched on the social value. So you get given 2 community days every year for a charity of your choice. And then company car or car allowance, and some contracts also give you a company vehicle as well. So that's that one.
Just to jump in there, Miguel. Hi, sorry, my name's Sam. I'm the Resource and Operations Manager within our Transport Infrastructure Business Unit. If you just go back a slide, please, Ryan. We also have our A-Star Awards, which is a brilliant scheme that we have at Amey. So this is where you would be nominated by a staff member to for the good work that you've done at Amey. So everyone's got the option to nominate a staff whenever you want to identify someone that's done great work, and that individual will receive a £25 voucher. From there, you'll be put forward to annual awards, which means that you can win up to, I want to say, £200 voucher. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jolene. But that is something that then the rest of the business will nominate you for. You become an A-star for the rest for that year. So it is. We have some brilliant schemes at Amey. It is really good to work for.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Sam. Yeah, and then next one. Sorry, Ryan. Brilliant. So obviously these are just a few of our roles at the moment. Obviously we've got hundreds on the website. But these are just some that we're recruiting for at the moment. So Sam, I don't know if you want to talk about the TI side, transport and infrastructure.
Yeah, so within transport infrastructure, we do the maintenance for all the transport infrastructure across the UK. So we look at maintenance for Highways England or National Highways, a lot of rail companies as well, and all the way up to Scotland, working across as well local authorities. So that means that we will be repairing and looking at ways that we can improve carbon emissions, making sure that the flow of everyone's transport is flowing smoothly, and a lot of projects that we kind of work on to make sure that, you know, that the roads and rail is running as smoothly as possible. So the first role that I'm highlighting here is a role that we've got out down in Kent. So for our Kent contract, we look at the maintenance for the local authorities, making sure that the transport within the council is flowing smoothly, and as slowly as possible. So what we are looking for here is someone who has got that logistics experience. So what they were doing is delivering the logistics for our fleet and transport, ensuring that all of our equipment that we've got is compliant, and the transports that we use are up to date with the compliance and things like that. You'll also be overseeing the fleet and transport team as well. So we're looking for someone who has got that management experience, and can really put a team forward. You'll also be overseeing the fleet maintenance as well. So any repairs that we need for our trucks. So bear in mind, we do the maintenance for winter maintenance, and we'll have kind of gritters going out from September. Yeah, we do have them that early, all the way up to April. So we will have a lot of maintenance work to ensure that those vehicles are well ready for our winter maintenance. So it's kind of looking at that. Another role that I'm highlighting today is our highways inspector that we have got in Glasgow, working in our Palmerdy office. So with this role, this is working 40 hours a week and carrying out inspections on our highways. So you'd be kind of working alongside the project team that start halfway in between and the middle to ensure that the roads that we are maintaining are compliant with what our client is wanting, also safe as well for it to be used for the members of the public too. So what we are really looking for again is probably that highways kind of sorry, not highways, that project management skills, have kind of having the experience on looking at routes and logistics, to ensure that, you know, we are being safe with the work that we are rolling out. Over to you, Jolene.
Hi. So yeah, so again, just highlighting these two live roles. So currently recruiting for a void officer, fantastic opportunity, I have to say. So it's joining our regional accommodation maintenance team, so part of the MOD, so covering Stafford, Staffordshire. So what does a void officer do? Okay, so they basically play a really, really important role in ensuring void properties are maintained, managed and prepared to receive families, so ensuring the property is reaching the required move-in standard. So basically you're going to be responsible for assessing every property within the area, planning resources effectively, working in compliance with Amey, supporting the development of the supply chain, and so on. So really in an ideal world, what we're looking for is somebody that's got some experience in managing safety in construction or housing environment, planning, management of maintenance tasks, and so on. Okay, so that's the actual void officer one. And then we also have first line service desk analyst. So again, really, you know, the responsibilities is mainly customer services, providing advice, assistance to our customers, partners and suppliers. And there we're really just looking for somebody who's got a very strong customer service. So again, very transferable skills. So yeah, that's our live roles at the moment. Sam, did you want to do that one? Sorry.
Over to Ivan.
Hi everyone, I'm Ivan, I'm the Resource Operations Coordinator. So I suppose you all want to know how you actually move forward after this call and how we can get you into a role here at Amey. So at Amey, we have a dedicated process for hiring veterans. So when you apply, your application is reviewed by fellow veterans within the company itself. So that could be from our affinity group or people on the call today. So that ensures that your unique skills and experience are accurately matched with the right roles we have here. Because we wouldn't want you coming in on and really sort of underselling yourself and going into an entry level role when you actually should be in a management role. So since I'm not a veteran myself, we do rely on those experts already embedded in the company to sort of decode your CVs and the military language so they can recommend the best positions for you. So once they've made their recommendations, we pass the details on to our hiring managers, and then we explore all opportunities together. So the first instance would be that you would send your CV over to us in the recruitment team. We'd have a look at it, send it over to the veterans within the company. They have chats regularly to have a look through them, decode them, send them back to us. We then shortlist for the role that you want to go forwards with. We then set up interviews and arrange them on a suitable day for you. They'd either be virtual or in person, depending on the role. And we'll also do some interview preparation with you one-to-one as well before the interview, because I can imagine you probably haven't had an interview in quite a while. So we'll help you with the sort of questions and the sort of process behind that. After that, we'll have a call with you for the interview feedback. So that's normally at day sort of 20 in the application process. And then if it's a success, we'll send you out an offer, go through the contract with you and pass you on to our onboarding team, who will explain all the sort of compliance checks and things like that. And so roughly from start to finish, it's about 30 days from your first application. And then we'd welcome you into Amey and get you set up with our affinity groups and make sure you get the best start possible. So if you do want to move forwards today after this call, you've got our 3 contact details there. If you scan the QR code, connect with us on LinkedIn. Even if you don't want to join Amey, still message us. We can give you some advice, tips, and make sure you're a success in your next interview. We've also got the email address there for the Service to Success program that we mentioned earlier. And so if you email that email address expressing that you're interested in joining, one of the team would get back to you. If you go onto our website as well, you can look at all the careers. So we hire roughly 300 people per month. And so there's loads of opportunities, such a huge company that is growing. I've only been here myself 8 months now, and it is generally a really good company to join. And so if you go onto our careers page, have a look at what interests you, and then you can set job alerts up on there as well for your location or your skill sets as well. So yeah, do send over your applications.
That's amazing. Thank you, everyone. I'll ask all the speakers to put their cameras on. Any questions that you've got, please write them in the box or raise your hand. But thank you, everyone. Just whilst Ryan's taking that presentation down. Thank you for that. That was really, really, really good. A lot of information there. Ryan, I'll kick off with you. You started that off really strong, so thank you very much for that. Just a couple of things that you said on network. It allows you to find out about yourself. That is priceless information. I absolutely love that. It's a full time spent in recce is seldom wasted. So can I ask, what did you find out about yourself during that process? Something that you weren't aware of?
Yeah, so actually, I think it's a good question, and I, as the guys have kind of been going through this, I've been thinking more and more about what that process allowed me to do, and I think it's not common sense because sometimes you assume that people understand these things or they've gone through similar journeys or they think in the same way that you are, but people have talked about transferable skills, and even from the perspective from the individuals on the call now that are specialists in recruiting on HR, I've attended CTP events on behalf of Amey Recruiting, and even the recruiters there sometimes are not even aware of the things that they should be pulling out of military veterans because the veterans themselves don't see it. And to summarize as a way, the visual observation of what I learned and what I could see people struggling with is often the only people that are approaching an Amey booth come from an engineering background. They could be infantry, RAF, Navy, anything. And what they do is they see Amey civil infrastructure and they're like, oh, well, I have any skills that possibly contribute to that. And they think, well, I'm an infantryman, or I'm X, I'm Y. And then the engineers that come up do the same thing. Oh, well, I'm an engineer. And then you have this conversation with them now and you try to pull it out to them. And these are all the things that I learned along the journey. Like, yeah, but when did you do your last bit of engineering? Perhaps it's a trade course and they'll name a time from, X, Y, and Z. You're like, well, that's not what you are then, are you? You are a member of the armed forces. And I wrote this down because it's hilarious, because everyone on the call will have heard this and they'll probably laugh. Civvies pay thousands for this. It's actually really, really true. And that's that journey that I learned, because when I was going out and asking questions, and I looked at it from the other way. So rather than going, I want a job, and I'm sat there in a conversation going, I want a job, I want a job, I want a job, I looked at it from, I need to learn. I need to understand, I need to know the industry. So all of my questions and coffee chats, etc., were gauged from that point. And in each conversation I had, I learned a little bit more about the industry from a slightly different viewpoint. And I'd get a kind of good bit of a golden nugget where someone would turn around and say about customer engagement, for argument's sake, and they talk about what they do in their roles. And banking was a perfect example for me. So financial services was one of the areas I was looking at. I'd networked quite heavily. The roles that I had looked at were what they would call third line, so the kind of support functions to it, and first line being your sellers, your traders, etc. Now, financial services, for those on the call that don't realise, they don't really recruit veterans as such because they tend to be university graduates and financial things. Even though there's routes in, it's not the typical route, and you would come in very low. And they kept saying that same thing about the customer interaction piece. I was like, well, I actually love this. I used to be sales before I joined the military anyway. I realized that a lot of the stuff that we do as veterans is actually strategic networking. It's target analysis. It's how you strip down a network and work out your ways in. And that's all networking and kind of business to business sales are, is identifying who your decision makers are and then how you get to them. And that's target identification. And I kind of thought, perhaps I would be interested. And then I'd go to these chats. And very quickly, they quite say to me like, oh, it's 13-hour days and it's this and it's that, which is fine. Don't mind working hard, but then you actually dig under the layer of it and kind of realize what they were doing. It's like, actually, this isn't for me. So I quite happily then pulled myself back out to that route and then carried on looking and carried on going. And that's the encouragement that I would give to every veteran. I put industries on the list that I 1000% didn't think I was interested in. I spent 2 weeks on a site for a hospital build, on a construction build. Meant being shadowed by project manager and one of the chief quantity surveyors. Come away from it thinking, yes, great industry, but it's too small. It's on the site. It's just one thing. Day-to-day activity is that it's not big enough. I wanted something bigger. I wanted something more complex. I wanted more problems to solve. But I had a bit of an insight. I thought, well, actually, it's good. But if there was more levels, I'd be more interested. And in that process of going through various different routes, and then I had the jobs offered to me. What I had done in those conversations, which I didn't realize, was I'd actually created a lot of internal chat about me, to the point of where a friend of mine works in Barclays, was a former colleague in the SBS, and he'd be ringing me up regularly and he'd say, have you spoken to this person? I'm like, oh yeah, we had a coffee the week, or we did this. And he went, well, he's just come on to me and asked me about you, and they asked me for this. And in that process of me learning the industry and finding out about it, I actually generated a job role in Q4. And those that don't know, banking don't typically employ anyone in Q4 because they close the doors. So I'd done quite an impossible task in that. But then when I got it offered and I interviewed, I knew everything about the role. They knew me. They'd had people talking about me. And I get that there's a recruitment process in most industries, but just to kind of put veterans on the call at ease is a lot of people say the same thing. They're really disheartened by it, just getting rejection after rejection. What you're actually going up against is probably an AI filter these days, and your background doesn't fit, particularly with using terminology for military. And if you do get through that stage, and there's getting through to the person that is HR, they can't translate your relatable skills because you haven't come from an industry, you're not using the same terminology, the right pro words, right buzzwords, and things like that. those networking conversations allowed me to do that, first of all. So I knew, when I was referring to kind of like a senior stakeholder engagement, all I knew that was you chain of command, kind of like, and understanding different networks, working with different, Navy, Army, RAF, that's interagency, kind of interoperability, multi-organizational kind of, or even, cultural, multi-time zone, things like this. It was the key differences and the delineators in how you sell yourself. But in that, what I was having was I would meet people in a way that I wasn't looking, yes, I'm looking for a job, but I wasn't thinking I need to leave this call or this meeting with a job. But then what was happening was they'd then reach out to me and go, you would be good at this role. Will you apply for this role? Are you interested? And that's that key difference with the veterans on the call is if you do see a role on the Amey site, as an example, or any industry, identifying it on a website isn't necessarily the means that you will get that role. You need to have understood it. And then those hiring managers need to know you. They need to know your background and what transferable skills. It's kind of like a double prong approach. And that was what I learned, because if I hadn't done that, I would have kept applying, and I would have then fallen into that belief that everyone will be told, and you're probably in the services now still getting told it, that there's no jobs out there and there's no money in the civilian sector. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth, because the reality is you have hundreds of organisations paying fees, memberships, attending events, paying a lot of money to come to veteran organised recruitment events because you have skills that they can't fill in that organisation. And then within that, most people on the call will probably assume that the MOD doesn't pay well. They don't. They really don't. And people's view of what is good in the civilian sector, what they're basing it off, is completely biased, because they think, well, if I'm getting paid this is what civilians are paying. And that's completely wrong. But you wouldn't know that if you were just applying for a role. So these questions that people ask, kind of how do you have those salary conversation, negotiations and things like this, that's how you find out, because when you network, you start to gauge what roles are, what they cover, what they pay, what the complexity is, how valuable your skills are to those industries. And you can actually go into these conversations really having your head held high and knowing that you have, a value that they can't find anywhere else.
And you just on that, you shared your kind of fascinating journey into Amey, where your skills were identified first and then the role was defined second. During that time, were you comfortable with that slight ambiguity or that lack of info? Because I know that's not everybody's good in that space. Do you thrive in that?
Yes, I think it's hard. So a recruiting partner had said something, and actually I use this analogy. He said sometimes an industry recognizes an individual and their skills, but they don't know what those skills are. So they give them the box and they let them find where the box is and then let them get in it. And that's exactly what Amey had done for me in that sense, because what I realized coming into the organization was what I assumed were common sense type of thing. And it's horrible to use that word, but it's actually that as service veterans, we overlook the valuable skills that we've actually been taught as day-to-day running, and we're in whichever industry you've come from within the military, we're highly competitive in that industry. So we're really self-critical. We measure ourselves on failures, because it's a great thing to be from a failure point of view, because you look at how you improve, whereas commercial industry is the opposite way around, and they look for success and measure from success. So within that comes a valuable skill set in itself, but all those things that you learn that we just think are common sense. When I first came in, I was kind of thinking that, no, this is obviously that you would know that, and this can't be a thing that I'm seeing type of thing. And then very quickly, that's if I could prove that actually it was right, and we do view things from a different standpoint because of the environments that we've been in and the things that we've been taught. Even something from basic training, like really what we class as common sense things, are actually really not. And I'll give a great example of this. I was having a conversation with one of the executives who is our health and safety executive. And I'm having a real big issue sometimes getting frontline operatives to understand how unsafe some of their practices are. And we're getting injuries, near deaths, sometimes in some of them, on rail, etc. how do the armed forces treat certain examples? And he gave me one, and I went, well, actually, so I can give a great example. I remember being in Afghanistan in 2008, 2009, where the threat suddenly changed, where the IED threat was pressure plates, heavy metal content, and we used to find them really easily. And I was actually on the ground when we set one off, and it turned out when the A team came out, we found the first ever tripwire IEDs, and it completely changed everything. It changed everything. And then we introduced that we can't rely on technology, and it has to be the human eyeball, the Mark One, those the hairs in the back of your necks, and 5s and 20s kind of thing. And many people on this call have probably been taught it now, or remember the days when that got introduced. And that was a completely alien concept. And he was like, "Oh God, I need to introduce my health and safety director, and we need to start pushing this down to things like that." I just assumed that was common sense. So those things there, they're actually really valuable. And Martin had said about the way that we view things, the way that we work, the effort that we put in. We've just measured things on a different scale for such a long time. It's become normal.
No, absolutely. Yes, thank you for that, Ryan. And Jack, just on a similar theme, Ryan was talking about the content and the quality of the conversations he was having during his resettlement. Were there any conversations you had where you didn't quite agree? It felt a bit flat. The person you're speaking to couldn't quite see your value. What advice would you give to others that are in that place? How do you dust yourself off?
In terms of networking, I'd say if people are going to have, you're going to go out, you're going to network, you're going to have the conversations. If you feel that it's not going the way you anticipated it to go, or the industry isn't what you'd expect, my advice would be like network big, and then once you get an interest in something, start to zero in on that area. So for me, I really wanted construction. I really wanted project management. So I was just hammering everyone on LinkedIn about construction. I'm sure Caroline will remember I was tirelessly saying I want to be a project manager in construction.
I was just going to say, can I just add to that, Jack? Jack was your exemplary student. He had our support in the background, but he was all over it. So you're always going to land really well, Jack, because you do have to we can support you, but you do have to do it yourself as well. Sorry, I just wanted to butt in. Carry on.
The way I would describe it for the guys and girls on the chat now. In the military, you've got your boss or your chain of command behind you singing your praises, and they're the ones geeing you up to everyone and saying so and so's really good. You're going through a period now where you're going to be on your own for a little while, or you're going to take a step when you're on your own, and no one is going to be singing your praises. So in terms of networking and getting out there, you need to start blowing smoke for yourself. And it might be a little bit, given our backgrounds in the military, we're not that keen on doing it and saying, look at me, we're quite humble people, but you're going to need to blow a bit of smoke your way on social media and whilst you're networking, because no one else is doing it for you at this point. It's not until you then join an organization where you then branch off and you create another little group of people, like-minded people, like what we've got now with the Armed Forces Network in Amey, where we'll all support each other. So my advice is network big, create a big pool to network, start refining it once you start getting an eye on what interests you. Promote yourself. No one's promoting you anymore, or they won't be for a period of time. You need to do that yourself, as daunting as it can seem, and be provocative on social media.
I laughed at that. Yeah.
Get people talking and write things that are going to make people comment and start a conversation, because that's what's going to start the network conversation of, oh, what are you interested in? Where do you want to go? And then these little conversations branch off. And like Ryan says, you have a coffee with someone or you have a chat with someone, and then later on down the line, they'll have a chat with someone else and it will link back to you. So any advice? Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Actually, Jack has just made a great point there, and actually I was going to mention it was aim high, 100% aim high, aim higher than you think. Aim small, miss small. That kind of age-old saying. But we have a skill set. One of those things that we overlook in the military, and it's exactly what Jack was saying, was key stakeholder engagement. No one in the military thinks anything of going into the CO. You get tasked with perhaps doing a project downtown where you engage with the mayor or whatever. We've all done them. Like everyone will have done this on a daily basis. That's the top of the food chain, yeah? No one thinks anything of it. They'll, walk it. Yes, you understand who it is and you have a professional manner about that engagement, but you would have to have done that part of your daily life. Civilian industry is completely different, and actually engaging with one of these key stakeholders, you know, senior execs, your CEOs, COOs, etc. It's actually a really daunting experience for a lot of people, particularly when given tasks surrounding them people. Now, yes, early on in military career, that probably was, you know, the reality for a lot of people. You get used to that. Civilians are very, you know, reserved about that because it's not comfortable for them. We excel at doing that, and it's actually a great strength because when Jack was on about aiming high, I wouldn't think anything of engaging with a managing director. And actually, background there, they are interested because it is different, and they would like to speak, particularly if they had a warm introduction of someone in the company. And what I found myself doing then, like Jack said, they would go, "Oh, well, we can have a Teams call because I'm assuming not in London." I was like, "No, I'm in London." I wasn't. I was waiting for them to confirm a date, got on a train and went, and before I knew it, I was there all the time. But I would sit there, you know, at the end of the day, they're people. All they are people. Yes, they have a title, and that's where our, you know, strength is really powerful. And I see it time and time again. You walk through the London office with Amey, you know, Andy Miller will walk past, he'll say hello if you can. A lot of people won't even dare look at him, and he's a person, and he'll say, you know, hello to you. So that in itself, which Jack is saying, it's invaluable.
And Jack, just in terms of kind of that bravery theme, if you like, the role that you're doing within the kind of facilities management space, did you have any experience in that before you moved into?
No, I had no
Okay.
sort of commercial technical experience in this role. I was purely hired. I was hired by a veteran who came through BuildForce and obviously reached out to you guys and said, "I'm looking for a veteran that's got some leadership skills," and that's how I got linked into it. So I'm in a fairly decent position within this account in a sort of senior management role, and I was employed based off of leadership, and that they wanted someone with some leadership skills. And then all of the commercial and the technical stuff, I'm learning that every day. But what I'll say to the people on the call that are about to take the plunge into employment is, what you'll find is there'll be civilians that have been in this industry for 10, 15 years, and they'll come across a problem that they have to Google the answer, or they have to open a book they have to answer. So we have this mindset in the military of, you do a course, you become an SME in it, you really indulge yourself in it, and you become this person that is great at fibula training or great at this training. In Civvy Street, you kind of learn as you go on. Someone might be an SME in a job, and it's not the comparison that we're thinking of in the military. It will just be that person's got that title, and they're sort of learning the ropes as they're going along too, despite being in that position for years. So.
And the one thing I did want to say to you, Jack, was just in terms of the advice you're giving, but also to applaud the kindness that you are showing to other service leavers at the moment. Indeed, all the veterans on the call, in terms of the effort that you're making with other people that are coming through, that kind of warmth seems to be absolutely shining through all of you at the moment. So I don't know if that's a typical veteran trait. I don't know if you're just a very special bunch of people and we've been lucky to get you on one call, but applauding every single one of you. In terms of the role that you were talking about there, it was just slightly new to you. A question to Martin as well on that, in terms of he's moved into business improvement. Again, what does one of those do, if anybody's on the call that's interested in that? Martin? He's there.
I think Martin's had to leave. I think
he's had to leave off.
Yeah,
That's okay. Can anyone talk us through just what Martin's role is?
So business improvement, looking for inefficiencies in the processes of what we're currently dealing with. So it could be anything, to be fair. It could be the customer relationship issues. So that is a big area where we need to kind of, it could be down to not carrying out things that are contractual obligations. It could be things that fall outside of a contractual obligation. So ultimately you kind of going through a systematic identification process of trying to work out where there's inefficiencies in an area. And then looking at how it can be remedied. Now, it could be that there isn't a direct remedy and actually need a risk mitigation, which everyone is really great in this audience have been able to do, because we are risk-based viewers. Or it could be that actually there is a big issue in that process. Sometimes it could be a bit of conflict resolution. But within that, like Jack was saying, there isn't a job role. It's like, this is what it is. You would be that you go and find what the solution is, you go and find what the problem is, you look and you understand. And one of those things that I say in there is like, sounds like it's common sense. Actually it isn't, and it is hard to find individuals that are good at doing that role. So that is what kind of like the improvement functions within that area sit at.
And the reason I asked that, Ryan, and Caroline's the same, we can think about 40, 50 candidates live that we've got at the moment that would love to do that. They don't want to do a conventional role. They want to do something where if there's a problem, they solutionize, they're wearing different hats on different days. That role is perfect for so many people, especially at a senior rank, because that is exactly what they do. So we'll definitely pick that up just to take it further.
When you're saying that, I wrote it down there because one of the things I see a lot is with the CVs, it's the same thing. It needs to be the translation. What a lot of people do, and I was trying to pull this out to people at some of the events, people will say, like Jack has said, I want to be this, I want to be that, and they nailed on to it, but they don't actually really know what that is. They draw the comparison, if you will, and I have to break it down with somebody. You want to be a facilities manager? I was like, right, okay, so we'll use Amy's example. I said, if we're going facilities manager, we'll use a school's contract. I was like, we're on one school, and it's the facilities manager there. It's like, the reality is, like, and Jack will say this, I met one of them with Jack, it's probably an ex-caretaker that showed a bit of aptitude, so he's managing maybe 5 or 6 people. I was like, what is your job now? And he's like, oh, well, I'm I think he was a staff sergeant in logistics, manages X, Y, and Z. And I was like, right, so how many people have you got? And he's like, 95. I was like, right, okay, and what logistics are you managing? And he goes into it, and I was like, look, your role is much higher than this. It's much more complicated. And what they've done is they've gone, oh, well, I'm getting paid 36 grand. That's pays 50. That's a jump. Oh, well, it must be this area. And you're like, actually, aim high and really understand those roles. And you're probably looking at a regional manager that manages multiple facilities. So you've got to understand where your valuable kind of skill sets are. And like I was a sniper down. Like, well, that means nothing. Yes, it's a skill set, but what are those skills in there? What did you do? Great. Well, these are the areas you could actually really perform in there. And then they're probably higher than everyone thinks on this call.
No, that's really, really good. And just in these last few minutes, sorry, I could speak all day on this. It was so much fantastic content that you've all raised. Michelle, to you, you spoke about the rank structure within your discipline. Do you feel as a veteran that you get that kind of 2-year itch that people talk about, and do they make cater for it, do you think?
Absolutely. So I'm very much, I don't settle. I always thrive to kind of just better myself. And I'm always looking at, right, what's the next thing on the family tree and the function? What do I like, look at that now? And then what do I need to do in terms of that job description in the current role now to demonstrate the experience for when I go for that role? And I've just got my eye on the top. And I think, it's just embedded.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well the Amey transition program, the Service to Success program, I think you called it. I mean, hats off to you. That is an exceptional program. And even Caroline and I were texting there, that is one of the best in industry that we've seen. So we wish you all the luck with that. But again, with some of the stats you highlighted, it's because of the value and the contribution that your veterans are bringing. So you need to cater for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. The business are really bought into the value of our veterans and our spouses, cadets, reservists, and they really want to encourage them to get involved. So by shaping this unique program, we'll just open the door for many more.
Okay, and we can maybe do a separate session just to explore that program a bit further on your behalf, because it's very, very, very impressive. Ryan?
Yes, I just realised one of the questions, I don't think we've actually answered. It's a Mark's question. All of these functions sit against all of the business units. So they each of these roles sit in every single one. So they're replicated or duplicated with a specialisation, clearly rail, highways, etc. And within that, it answers something else. Hybrid is the thing. It is the thing. Please don't discount yourself from roles. I had people saying, oh, I need a job in North Devon because that's where I've been based for 18 years. I was in London office every single day when I first started. No one is there. I go in now when I need to. I now live in Stroud. So please don't, in this modern world, don't look at an industry and go, well, they're based in London or they're based in Birmingham and I'm in Scotland. Our managing directors are in Scotland. They get the flight down whenever they need to. They spend a day in the London office and then, they get a flight back, etc. So within that question there, Mark, we have them across the business. If there's an area that you're really interested in, don't suddenly think, oh, well, it's not applicable to me because I live in Plymouth and they haven't got any contracts there. And it's the same for all industries out there.
And to Jolene, Sam, and Ethan, you are so incredibly important to our service leavers now. So you're the one that's going to be guiding with them and working through them. Thank you for talking through those job descriptions. That's incredible. Just somebody taking time to explain it. It really, really helps. Just a quick one to Jolene. Obviously, I think it was just mentioned there by Refin, but that nationwide footprint, you are throughout the 3 nations. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And again, we can just, from our own testimony as well, we can just assure that you are in the safest of hands with Jolene and her team. So we've seen firsthand just what they do. You're providing interview prep now, which you've mentioned, which is absolutely fantastic. So credit to you. Unfortunately, I'm going to need to wrap up. We are running out of time, but just a huge thank you to Ryan, Jack, Martin, Michelle, Jolene, Sam, and Ethan for their incredible contribution today. It's one of our strongest chats. And to our military community that are watching this, one exceptional employer, strong talent in the business with great opportunities, and Amey really look after you once you get to the other side. Remember, you're not alone. BuildForce are here to support and guide you as you transition, so please get in touch if you have any questions and we'll help you take it further. And I'll hand back to Caroline for just some final insights.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. I just wanted to say, so you heard it here. Aim high, Amey, BuildForce behind you, you will succeed. And I'd just like to say, I've been working directly with Amey for the last 5-6 years, and they are exemplary. They do care, and it is about finding that organisation, that culture, that ethos. This is the organisation for you. And with regards to their programme, we are working very closely with Amey. So any CVs I'm sharing with the company, you're going straight into that talent pool for that programme. So work with us and you will be connected. And before you all sign up, and sorry, we're working on civvy time because we're 4 minutes late. The next event, not to be missed, 9th of October, get your butts down there. It's a fantastic employment event, our Insight Day in Harrogate. 40 of our key employers in the room, all in one room, collaboration at its best across the whole breadth of the built environment, the wider infrastructure, engineering, home building, consultancy, defence, security, FM, the list goes on. That is in the room put on for you, so don't miss out. Email info@buildforce.org.uk. So enjoy the day. I hope you have a better day than I have. The weather is awful, so put your coat on and look after yourselves.